You still enjoying this?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was having trouble for a minute there because but some confusion, and then I had an emotional trigger to one of the things. Question 19. But I'm back. I got the cake in me. The little sandwich thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
This is Libby Road and the Sound Epistemology Podcast. On this episode of the podcast, Rupert and I move on to number 19 of the Street Epistemology Survey, the survey that explores our relationship with truth. In this discussion, we talk about how our relationships can affect our willingness to investigate others' ideas. We also talk about conversation goals and how to better display our sincerity, all with a side of hot frog soup. We hope you enjoy number 19.
19. I often investigate beliefs that do not match my own. Okay.
I said strongly agree, and you said agree.
Yeah, because I don't always, but it's
It
fun
doesn't
to
say
do
always,
so.
though.
I often, right. And that's why I say I often investigate while I agree, not that often.
Yeah.
I think might be fair to say.
You're humbly saying that I don't do this and maybe I should do more of it, or?
No, I do, just not that often.
Okay.
Often, but not often.
Not strongly often.
That's clear. Huh?
Not strongly often.
Not firmly.
I often find myself investigating beliefs that do not match my own. I really enjoy having this conversation and these conversations with you. I think that we agree a lot.
Yeah.
Saying that, I often find myself investigating claims that I don't agree with, and I find that much more interesting.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, finding out where we have daylight in between us, that's way more interesting to me than if we were to bang all 24 on these exactly the same. That would be dull for me.
Yeah.
So I find it more interesting to talk to people that I do not agree with.
And I think that's why you strongly agree, and I only agree
Right.
because I like when we're in accord. I like to find similarities, as well as I like to find the differences.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there's some comfort in resonating on the same frequency
Yeah.
as people. You and your, can I say life partner? Would that be?
Yeah.
You and your life partner, do you find, where are you at with being on the same vibration versus being on different vibrations? What would be the percentage of vibrating on the same frequency that you have?
You're going to get me in trouble.
Well, you don't
You're
have
gonna
to
get me
answer
in
that.
trouble.
Okay.
I'll say this. I think I enjoy talking to Annie about things that we disagree about more than she does.
Okay. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the thing. And I think that's come up for me a few times here. Like, it's not always fun to talk about things we disagree on or have
Right.
those things pointed out. And I think that's the beauty of this, of SE, is finding ways so that it can be. Because there's a space you can provide, especially with a romantic partner like that, where you're excited to explore that stuff with each other. It's typically in the honeymoon phase when you're first getting to know each other, but even, years down the road with a partner, or with a friend, or to where it's always interesting for both parties, because I think some people that can be a bit antagonistic and not as enjoyable, as you say.
Yeah. I mean, it could be seen that I'm antagonistic when I'm really just wanting clarity and understanding. And sometimes I come off as, well, I just want to argue with you.
Right.
And that's demonstrated by saying, well, how did you figure that out? How do you know that? From my end is, I want to understand. From another end, it could be seen as, well, you just don't believe me. And I understand that. And that's where doing these kinds of things can help soften that to where my desire to understand is coming through more clearly and not so much, well, I just want to disagree.
Yeah.
Because I just want to fight.
Right, you just want to be contrarian.
Yeah, and that's, it's hard to convince people that I'm sincere when we're talking about things that are very personal to them, possibly. And that's where I want to get better. And that's why I think doing this kind of stuff helps with that. Because I learn how to word things better. I learn how to maybe read people better so that I can be more aware of where we're at, and so that I can think about it maybe a little bit more deeply and say, well, maybe I should say this instead of this. And I could still pose that kind of question, but it comes off less as just being antagonistic. And I think that's harder to do with family and friends if they know your past and your baggage and the views you used to have. You know, sometimes it's tougher than to just have a fresh conversation with a stranger. You know, they don't know what you used to think, and so whenever you're asking questions, they aren't necessarily under the assumption that you're just doing this to be antagonistic.
Yeah, maybe, that your old motivations may have been updated.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've observed that in you, that I think I might have even, when we started hanging out again after I moved back to America, that it was interesting for me to observe you using your powers of shit stirring that I knew when we were both younger men, now as a force for good, as opposed to just a force for unrest.
Just to do it?
Just to do it, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of, when I first knew you, when we were playing in bands together, it'd be more that. When we played in a band together, it was more that. And now it's with an intention behind it of clarity, I think, of curiosity. And that's been beautiful to see that transition from just chaos, crazy making, if you will, to now stirring up, but with some intention to have us all improve, everyone in the conversation improve. I don't think that was your goal necessarily before, and I have the advantage of being away from you for all those years to then come back and see, look at the growth that's happened, you know.
That's encouraging. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's abundantly clear, yeah. It's very clear, and yeah, it's really cool to see as well.
And so take somebody that I haven't seen in 10 years, and they have this idea of me from 10 years ago, and I start asking questions like this, I can totally understand where they'd be like, oh,
here we go
still
again.
doing it. still just want to push my buttons and see how far we can go before I punch him in the face.
Shut the fuck up, Tex.
Well, yeah. At least, well, it sounds like I'm in the right trajectory.
Absolutely, I'd say you are. Yeah, and it's that innate, wherever the motivation is that comes to ask the stirring up questions, that's part of your DNA. So you've got such an advantage to this anyway, because now all this is you're just sculpting the red clay or the green clay. You got the green clay, fucking spades.
Yeah.
And now you're sculpting the green clay into a gorgeous shape instead of just a big clump, a big clump of clay that you're twatting people with.
Like refining. Yeah, I like that. And it's little incremental change too.
Yeah.
That produces big changes.
Yeah, I remember in the Duncan Trussell podcast, at one of the episodes, they talked about how you'd never see a film about someone's, sort of spiritual growth, spiritual journey toward, I don't want to say enlightenment, but walking in a present, mindful way from day to day. You'd never see that story because it's such incremental change as to be imperceptible. So it wouldn't make an interesting movie at all. It would be a 43-hour movie of someone just not reacting to a weed whacker being turned on when they start rolling camera. And then,
Reminds me of that frog that's in the hot water, and it doesn't know, it can't tell because of the small incremental change that it ends up boiling in the water. Because before you know it, the water's boiling, but the change was so incremental and small, yet killed himself.
Yeah, it's a fucking horrible example, but it does
Thank you.
illustrate the point. This poor little frog boiled to death.
Yeah. I didn't come up with that.
No.
You've heard that before, haven't you?
I have, but I refrained from using it because it's such a horrific sight.
Yeah.
Let's see what could be a better one that we could use. That's the one I think people come to quickly, is the slow, imperceptible change.
Yeah.
But that really is the journey of someone that's been with a partner for, decades, to be able to stand back and see that. Or come back together in a friendship that both parties have had some growth, so that not only are you able to, because as you say, some people you'd come back to after 10 years, they're just going to assume, oh, he's up to his old shit stirring tricks. And for me, I was in a place to be open enough to see who you actually are now in this moment. And thank goodness for that, because it was like, oh my God, this is incredible what you've discovered, what you've been practicing, what you've tapped into. Yeah. Good on you.
Well, thanks for being here with me.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Should we wrap that one?
Yep.
Yep.